Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're peeling back the layers of a massive rumor that's currently dominating the Iraqi dinar space. We're going to cut right through the hype, separate what's actually happening from what's just noise, and give you a grounded, strictly analytical picture of where this whole story really stands today.
All right, let's just dive right into this explosive claim. Ask yourself, what if the ultimate rate that dinar holders have been obsessing over for years has already been quietly revealed? That is the suggestion coming from Frank26, a highly influential commentator in this community. When he speaks, people definitely pay attention. And recently, he pointed to a specific leaked final rate for the Iraqi dinar, framing the whole thing around a new exchange rate mechanism.
And here's the number that is generating all that buzz: $3 to $4. He's suggesting the rate the Central Bank of Iraq is working toward internally sits right in that $3 to $4 range. Now, this ties directly back to those pre-Gulf War reinstatement theories, right? The idea of returning the currency to its historical valuation of around $3.22. It's a staggering figure, honestly. But before we get totally carried away, we absolutely need to verify if this is reality or just pure noise.
Section 1. Inside the central bank, looking at the institutional reality.
To find the truth, we've got to look past those sensational numbers and see what's actually happening on the ground. Iraq's leadership isn't just talking about reform. They are bringing in absolute institutional heavyweights. We're talking internationally respected firms like Oliver Wyman and Ernst & Young, who are actively being paid to restructure the entire central banking ecosystem. These guys do not just set up shop in Baghdad without a serious government-backed mandate for change. They are physically there, doing the heavy lifting.
And we're seeing real, tangible progress. The central bank is systematically lifting restrictions. They've just restored 7 Iraqi banks that were previously completely cut off, effectively plugging them right back into global correspondent banking. Because let's be real for a second. You don't go through the massive headache of rebuilding your global banking infrastructure if you plan to keep your currency artificially suppressed at 1,310 dinars to the dollar indefinitely. You build this architecture because you fully expect to play on the world stage.
But what's really fascinating here is the formalized relationship taking shape. Iraq now has a direct line of formal coordination with the U.S. Treasury. That kind of alignment on anti-money laundering, counterterrorism financing, and managing foreign reserves. That is just not standard operating procedure for a country whose currency is meant to stay totally inconsequential. That level of strict compliance requires a currency functioning with absolute, unquestionable integrity.
Moving on to Section 2, the macroeconomic reality check, analyzing the strengths and pressures.
Because look, you can't just wave a magic wand and mandate a new exchange rate. You have to actually be able to afford it. And that affordability starts with a massive war chest. Right now, Iraq holds foreign reserves exceeding $80 billion. That is one of the strongest reserve positions in the entire Middle East relative to imports. It essentially gives the central bank the financial ammunition they'd need to defend a new exchange rate should one ever be implemented.
But we've got to balance all that optimism with some harsh reality. Lower global oil prices this year have added a serious layer of complexity. Iraq still gets the vast majority of its revenue from oil, which has led to a much tighter fiscal environment and recurring budget delays over in Baghdad. So trying to execute massive banking reforms while simultaneously navigating serious oil revenue headwinds, that is walking a very, very tricky tightrope.
Which brings us to Section 3, the mechanism. Reevaluation versus redenomination.
This is a fundamental fork in the road, and investors confuse these two concepts all the time. Now, influencers love to push the revaluation, or RV, thesis, the idea that the actual value of the currency suddenly skyrockets, creating this huge windfall for current holders. But an honest analysis means we have to look at the alternative, redenomination. This literally just means removing the zeros. Under a redenomination, your 100,000 dinar note simply becomes a 100 dinar note. Your actual purchasing power stays exactly the same, it just saves you from needing a wheelbarrow of cash to buy groceries. And we have to acknowledge that this remains a very real possibility currently being discussed in Iraqi parliament.
Section 4. Reading the true signals, way beyond the rumors.
So, if we can't just blindly trust influencer rate predictions, what do we actually look at? Well, the central bank has explicitly started referencing a highly technical metric in its public language, the Real Effective Exchange Rate, or REER. This is a huge signal. Technical analysts are paying incredibly close attention to this, because when a central bank starts talking about the REER, it usually means they're prepping financial markets for a rate conversation. And crucially, Iraq's rear data right now suggests the dinar might actually be undervalued compared to its peers on a trade-weighted basis. On top of that, Iraq is actively pushing for broader international integration. They've got an active accession process filed in Geneva for the World Trade Organization, and they're deepening their ongoing engagements with the IMF in Washington. Guys, these are massive credibility-building exercises. Countries do not go through the painstaking, grueling process of WTO and IMF integration with a currency they're intentionally keeping suppressed beyond what is economically justified. Currency credibility is pretty much the price of admission for a seat at those global tables.
Finally, Section 5, the bottom line, choosing patience over emotion.
We are stepping into what might be the most consequential chapter of the Iraqi dinar story yet. So, let's synthesize exactly what you should take away from this explainer. The big takeaway? While that $3 to $4 claim is entirely speculative, and frankly, you should view it with a healthy dose of skepticism, the unprecedented institutional infrastructure being built right now is absolute, verifiable fact. If you want to know where the rate is actually heading, keep your eyes glued to three things: the central bank's upcoming monetary policy communications, Iraq's oil revenue trajectory through the second half of 2026, and any further developments in their coordination with the U.S. Treasury. Those are your true markers of progress.
As we wait for actual official disclosures instead of just relying on confident predictions from influencers, I want to leave you with one absolutely critical question to guide your future financial decisions. Are you operating on rumors or are you operating on analysis? Look, markets are inherently filled with massive uncertainty, but the Iraqi dinar story rewards patience and analytical rigor infinitely more than it ever rewards urgency and pure emotion. So keep watching the data, stay completely grounded in the facts, and ask yourself what the true signals are really telling you.